to Stories of the Master. Welcome to episode 4 of the Stories of the Master podcast, where we reflect on how we can improve ourselves little by little, day by day, through sharing stories of the perfect exemplar of the Baha'i faith, Abdu'l-Baha. Today's story is the final episode on the topic of forgiveness. The Master just lived this virtue so well that I needed to dedicate 3 episodes to this topic. I promise I won't do another one on this, and if I do, I trust that you'll forgive me. In previous episodes on forgiveness, we have heard stories about people who hurt and attempted to murder the Holy Family. We heard about actual family members who spread rumors that led to Abdu'l-Baha's imprisonment. This episode is about a person who not only attempted to kill, but was responsible for killing many people. Now, I know that most of us listening to this will never experience anything like this, but it is the extreme nature of these acts that makes the forgiveness so remarkable. We shouldn't dismiss these stories and say, well, this will never happen to me, I don't need to listen. Instead, we should be saying, if someone can be forgiven for causing death, then everyone can be forgiven. Are you ready? Now, let's hear the story of the Master, Abdu'l-Baha. In 1909, after a revolution in the Ottoman Empire, all political and religious prisoners were set free. So, after being exiled from his home country at the age of 9 and spending decades of his adult life wrongfully imprisoned, losing his younger brother, his mother, his uncle, and his father and Lord Baha'u'llah, Abdu'l-Baha, now at the age of 65, was a free man. What do you think was the first thing that Abdu'l-Baha did with his freedom? Surely he deserved a holiday, some rest. No. His service to the cause intensified. First, he miraculously and safely transferred the body of the Bab to its final resting place in Haifa. He welcomed many Western pilgrims to the Holy Land, all while continuing to serve the poor, and wrote countless letters to Baha'is across the world. The next act of service he performs is considered by the beloved guardian of the faith, Shoghi Effendi, as the most outstanding achievement that will forever be associated with Abdu'l-Baha's ministry. It was his travels to the West. Abdu'l-Baha took a ship and his first stop was Egypt, where he stayed for 1 year, and then he goes straight to France. During his stay in France, one of the Baha'is named Hippolyte Dreyfus Barney looked after the Master. He assisted Abdu'l-Baha with organizing accommodation and transport from place to place. He also accompanied the Master to an eastern part of France close to the border of Switzerland called Thonon-les-Bains, which, up until my research for this episode, I pronounced as Thonon-les-Bains. Awful and embarrassing. Let's move on. When they were there, they stayed in a hotel called Hotel Jouparc. Okay, that's the last time I'm going to try and pronounce French things, but bear with me. When staying at this hotel, another Persian visitor arrives, and his name is Masoud Mirza Zele Sultan. He was a real-life Prince of Persia. And for simplicity for this story, we will just call him the Prince. The Prince was the son of Nasruddin Shah, the King of Persia, who put Baha'u'llah in prison and exiled him from Tehran to Baghdad and then to Constantinople. While we cannot blame the prince for the actions of his father, he was also not innocent. Through his orders, two great Baha'is known as the King of the Martyrs and the Beloved of the Martyrs were put to death simply for being Baha'is. In fact, this prince is responsible for the murder of at least 100 Baha'is. He was a bad guy. When the prince's family were finally overthrown, he had to flee Persia, never to return. And look at this. All these years later, in France of all places, here stands Abdu'l-Baha, a free man, and the prince, a man who had been exiled from his own land. The tables had turned. When the prince had arrived to the hotel, Hippolyte Dreyfus approached and greeted him. Then the prince noticed Abdu'l-Baha on the terrace, pacing up and down at a distance. The prince doesn't recognize him because Abdu'l-Baha was a child when he left Persia, but he notices that he's wearing traditional Persian clothing. He looks to Hippolyte and asks, "Who is that Persian nobleman?" To which he replied, "That is Abdu'l-Baha." The prince immediately knew who this was, and he knew what he had done to his family and fellow Baha'is. Standing there startled, the prince begged Mr. Dreyfus to take him to the master. While the Western Baha'is were not impressed to see the prince knowing what he had done, nonetheless, they took him to see Abdu'l-Baha. The prince approached Abdu'l-Baha nervously with a feeling of great remorse. As he was about to speak, Abdu'l-Baha spoke first, not giving him a chance to apologize, and says, in a way that only the sweet, loving master can, "All those things are in the past. Never think of them again." Sorry, what? This is a new dimension of forgiveness that we haven't addressed in this podcast. He didn't even allow him to apologize and didn't want to burden the prince with guilt. The master relieved him from shame. He did not argue with him. He did not offend him. This is forgiveness. Then he invited the prince, Masud Mirza Zela Sultan, and his two sons to spend a day with him, and Abdu'l-Baha treated him like an honored guest. After this spectacular act of forgiveness, the prince later reported that he wished that he was born in a different family and that he was never involved in the murder of so many Baha'is. In fact, he's reported to say that he wished that he became a Baha'i and got to serve the people of Persia. So what does this type of forgiveness mean? Does it mean that as Baha'is we allow people to murder and not worry about it? No. It is important that we stay safe and keep our families safe. However, in the case of the prince, Abdu'l-Baha must have seen that justice had already taken place, as he stood there a free man looking into the eyes of an exiled prince. But in the spirit of love, we are encouraged to forgive the way that God does. So, how does God forgive? Well, let me share these words from the master, Abdu'l-Baha. Inasmuch as God is loving to his children, lenient and merciful toward our shortcomings, why should we be unkind and unforgiving toward each other? As he loves humanity without distinction or preference, why should we not love all? Can we conceive of a plan and policy superior to the divine purpose? Manifestly, we cannot. Therefore, we must strive to do the will of the glorious Lord and emulate his policy of loving all mankind. Thank you for listening to episode 4. I really hope you enjoyed it, and also forgive me for doing 3 episodes in a row on forgiveness. Don't forget to subscribe and follow to catch the next episode of Stories of the Master.